Yeah, I think we could talk about it. Where do I begin? I was living with a coworker that I ended up dating, and I came home from work one day and there's a letter on the door and from the court, and that's how I knew he was serious. He wanted me out. At the time, I owned a 2009 Ford Focus, but the car, it just kept breaking down, 200k miles. I ended up selling it. It sold for $1,300. I flipped the money, found a car on Facebook Marketplace, and I bought that for $1,000. It was a 2002 Chevy Cavalier. Absolutely disgusting on the inside, but I was just grateful I had a good, decent running car. I knew my time was running out, so I just pictured me getting a schoolie and started drawing blueprints of how I could convert the inside. Things were definitely getting a little rough because it was to the point where I didn't even want to be in the house even though he's giving me time. So I, out of complete desperation, found this bus on Facebook Marketplace, sent the dealer a message like, this is my price range, do you have anything running that I could get back to Jersey? And he said, yeah, I have this bus. I'm like, well, the only other thing is I don't really have the money up front, can you work with me? He responded back and said that he would work with me. I felt like at that time I had like this moment of relief, and so I got a storage unit and put all my things in there, and got my best friend to help me drive up to New York to make payments for this bus. I was so happy picking up that bus. I get on the highway, all of a sudden the whole thing's shaking and it just goes boom. Next thing I know, I'm on the side of the highway and this drive shaft just completely blew in half. I almost went off the guardrail and into a ditch because of that. I immediately called the dealer up. I'm like, yo, I almost ended my life right now, and are you gonna do something about this? So he comes up and he gets the bus towed and tells me I need to wait. And at that time I needed a place to live, so I started to grab free pieces of wood, put it in my car, try to make a bed. And then he told me I could pick up the bus again, so I drove back up to New York, got the bus, and it blew again. Within the first hour of driving, at this point I had already paid $600 extra above my agreed upon price range, and he said he wasn't gonna help me fix it this time. I got scammed. My first time sleeping in the Chevy was not all nice like the pictures and everything that I posted later on. It just came to a point where he was just screaming to the top of his lungs, and he just told me to get out. So I grabbed some trash bags, put my stuff in there, and I slept on it in the car for my first week.
You know, guys, when you don't have nobody and you choose to love somebody and they don't love you back, that's the most deepest pain. And so all I gotta tell you guys this morning is, if someone shows you who they are, listen. Don't ignore that red flag. Listen and get away.
I was given this mini car crock pot thing, and I was making ramen noodles and stuffed salmon in it, and I learned to get farm eggs, and that because you don't have to refrigerate it, and if you want to test if they're good, if they float, they're bad. Then I ended up creating this like area in my car, in this little bubble in the parking lot of Lowe's. Even though I really wanted that schoolie and I couldn't grasp it within my hands, so I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna make this little bubble with me and my cat, and we're just gonna cruise out and just save as much money as I possibly can. And I mean, eventually it got easier. I learned how to organize and put stuff in bins, and everything was everywhere when I first moved in, but eventually it looked a lot nicer. And when it looked nicer, my cat liked it better too. Right, there was a second bus. It was a yellow bus that I wanted to finance in Toms River, New Jersey from a dealer. And I had to back out of the sale because I just found out I had lost my job at Lowe's. my job of 7 years. Are you joking? No, absolutely not. There's no way I was giving up my cat. All the shelters were full. My cat's 7 years old. If I had given her up, they would have euthanized her within a week. I had no money. I have saved up $1,500, and that wasn't enough for any real vehicle. I definitely feel like with van life trending that it's hard to find a high top vehicle. It's hard to find any cargo van in general, but I was just searching like vehicle after vehicle. They were all like $1,800, $20,000. Like, I'm not gonna have that type of money. So I ended up going up to North New Jersey, and it was like Better Deal Auto. And I had just started a YouTube at that time and spoke to the guy, and he was like, if you can come up with the money in 3 months, you could take the van home. And I thought to myself, you know what, there's no way I'm gonna do this. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna eat, but let's sign the paperwork. The vehicle costed $7,000 after taxes, and I was making $2,400 at Lowe's, just lost my job, so now I'm door dashing, skipping meals, barely making $1,500 a month, and I have to pay this guy at least $2,000 a month. I don't think anyone knew I had a big secret at the time. I had just lost my dog the winter before, and when you don't have family and you lose a companion like that, it hurts. All of a sudden, this cute ass puppy was just like basically placed on my lap. How could I say no? I couldn't. I came home with that puppy while living in my car. It was an extremely huge sacrifice and a big commitment. Potty training, I put little pee pads on the little passenger side floor that I had created inside of my Chevy, and it wasn't easy. I had another mouth to feed, so I went even longer without feeding myself, and I knew it was for the better good because I was even more motivated now to get this big cargo van. I want to say that I paid for the van all by myself because I was working my butt off, skipping meals trying to get the money up, but in the end I know my YouTube family is the only reason I have this beautiful vessel. I'd be homeless, I'd still be living in my Chevy. I don't know how I'd be doing it with 2 animals. Without their help, I would have been a good almost $2,000 short on the payments. Bringing the Vessi home was the greatest joy. I had so many plans. I wanted to put certain things, certain places. The problem was all the blueprints I designed were for a schoolie, and I just bought a high-top cargo van. I had to throw all my blueprints out and start over. The day that I picked up my van and I got to drive it out of the parking lot of the dealer, it was a stressful day. I paid for it, but I realized that the tank was almost touching the E and I didn't have enough gas money to drive it 2 hours south. I was making phone calls asking for money. It was embarrassing, but also I was so close and I didn't want to come this far and then not be able to take my van home. I was able to get the gas, but I had to empty my storage unit into my van because the bill was due the very next day and I just didn't have the funds. I started working again shortly after this, so I was able to get daycare for my animals and work, and it was hot outside, so I couldn't leave them in the car. I ended up gifting my car to my best friend. That's when I started the van conversion process. I have a bad knee from falling the winter before, so I ended up putting foam underneath the vinyl roll of flooring just as a precautionary so I didn't get hurt falling in the van. And because I did that, I couldn't drill anything into the flooring, so I ended up using the plastic wall to stabilize everything, which was working but wasn't officially the best way to do it. I wanted my build to be a self-built van, and so I was trying to make cabinets by hand, and it wasn't easy. Everything was just wobbling everywhere and unfinished or just breaking every time I made a turn. I was in Massachusetts and I ended up taking everything out, and I met a man named Mr. PJ, and he built a really sturdy shelf, and I absolutely loved it. But the issue I was having with it was there was no storage. I no longer had a place for my fridge, my anything. It was just in bags and bins everywhere.
Alright, it's getting dark outside.
I went to Lowe's and I started getting some pieces of wood, some signs to go on the outside because I had my mirror smashed while parking on the side, and I bought some cabinets from a Black Friday sale. La da da da, it's the motherfucking deal, double G, dog.